Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey, welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky, your host. We're sponsored by Cosgrove Content, wordsmiths for industry. If you have trouble in your workaday world of technical material, having someone write about what you do, that's what Cosgrove does. So look it up, cosgrovecontent.com. And I'm glad to be joined today by Brad King. He's co-founder and CEO of Orbion Space Technologies up in Houghton, Michigan. Welcome, Brad.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me on. This will be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Glad to have you on. Like so many people that I interview here, I spoke to you previously for a Forbes article. That was a lot of fun to learn about, and I know you guys have been busy since then.
Yeah, we are a 6-year-old company, and we came out of the gate fast, and we're in growth mode. So we've really been appreciative that the manufacturing trade press has picked up on what we're doing, and we kind of bring a new slant of manufacturing to the Midwest and to Michigan, which is a hotbed of manufacturing. But nobody has thought about satellites as something that is a manufactured good. So we're really happy to be bringing that to Michigan. Yeah.
So before we dive into the details, just give that top line of what Orbeon does.
Yeah, so an analogy is easy, being in Michigan. To simplify it, we're an engine company. We build engines, but our engines don't go in cars, they go in satellites. Satellites have the need to maneuver when they're in space, and they use our engines to do it. The competitive advantage our engines have is fuel efficiency. There's no gas stations in space. So when the fuel tank is empty, the satellite is done maneuvering and the mission is over. So Orbeon builds engines that have fuel efficiency that can be 10x higher than the competition. So our customers build satellites about the size of a dishwasher. These are maybe 100 to 200 kilogram satellites, and they use our engines to maneuver in space. And from the top level, it's that simple.
That's very cool. And so what's your background that brought you to that stage where you helped found Orbeon?
Yeah, so okay, there's the long story of how I got this way. I'll just start, and you can interrupt me wherever.
Okay.
I think, the first step is I've always been a space guy. I've just been fascinated with space. And I was lucky enough when I was young to know I'm going to work in space. That's it. So it makes career decisions and educational decisions pretty easy. So I ended up at the University of Michigan doing aerospace engineering. I did some work at the NASA Johnson Space Center, and I fell into a technology known as a Hall effect plasma thruster for my doctoral dissertation work. So I started working on that back in the early 90s, and at the time it was somewhat of a laboratory curiosity. It was the technology of the future, right? It was a futuristic plasma thruster. But, we all kind of knew in the industry that it was always going to be the technology of the future. It wasn't really a marketable widget. So I stayed with it because that was where my academic interest was, and started a research program in that field up here in Houghton and Michigan Tech. And lo and behold, in the mid 2010s, we could see the clouds gathering on the horizon that, holy cow, people are really going to need this widget. There is a huge new space economy coming. All these satellites are going to need this thing that I happen to be an expert in. So it was time to form a company and get ready to merge and meet the demand.
Excellent. Yeah. And so, part of that obviously is we all see the news stories, space going from that government-driven, huge project background that we know from when some of us were just kids to now it's like everyone's doing space in some form or fashion. So I'm guessing that's part of the driver for the demand you've got.
Yeah, completely. And it shifted in a good way. Space has always been, or previously was, the province of nation states. You needed the budget of a government. You needed the long-term vision of this is going to take us 7 or 10 years, and that requires governmental funding. So it plodded along. It made some great advances. But because of sort of technology evolution, all of a sudden there is a giant commercial demand for space. So this is now driven by, one of the purest motivators, which is greed. It's people wanting to make money, and those people are impatient. They're not going to look at a 7 or 10 year development timeline and suffer the ups and downs of political administrations. So once there was money to be made in space, the market has really just exploded exponentially. In 2015 and before that, the world as a whole launched about 150 to 200 satellites per year, and it was pretty flat. Fast forward to now, we're doing 2,000 satellites a year from Earth.
Wow.
And one comparison point I give is in January of last year, more satellites were launched in one day than in all of 2015, than in an entire year. So it's this kind of growth that's being driven by commercial players looking to make money on the next frontier.
Yeah. And so you got into Orbeon. Now tell kind of that progression of where the company started and you know, the ups and downs through the past 6 years, you said. And
yeah. So at the time I co-founded Orbeon with my co-founder and CTO is Dr. Jason Somerville. I was, and I still remain, an academic researcher at Michigan Tech University. I'm a chaired professor there. And I had a long-established laboratory of graduate student and PhD research in this area of Hall effect thrusters. So when Jason and I saw the need for this technology, we knew we needed to grow fast. So we founded Orbeon and set it up to be a venture-backed fast growth company. So it's a bit of a university spinoff in that we were working in this area in the university lab, and now it's more sort of synergistic with the university. We work together a bit, but Orbeon certainly is a company in and of its own. We knew that we needed to fund development, and we chose to do that with venture backing. So we've done 3 rounds of equity offerings and have raised $30 million in equity right now that we're using to fund operations. Yep. We can talk about sort of the steps here. We're starting to generate revenue and see growth now. And 6 years later, to go from a napkin sketch to a company with a headcount of 50 people and 20,000 square foot of operating space and prestigious government customers is really kind of mind-blowing that we went here this fast.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be like a whole single project in the old days, and you built a company around this opportunity. That's really cool.
Yeah, and the speed has been really really eye-opening for me, because in the past I've operated on government funding schedules, and now to be able to get to see a market opportunity, get some venture backing, and just go, it's incredible what we accomplish in a short time.
So why Michigan Tech? I mean, you mentioned you're a professor up there. Is that the driver, or is there actually advantages that you see to being in that location?
Well, so there's some personal reasons for me to be at Michigan Tech. I grew up in the UP, up in the Houghton area, so I had some attraction to come back. But so that's what placed me here. But the company wasn't founded here just because I lived here. We saw a lot of great reasons to be here. The first is quality of life. The lifestyle living up here is it's second to none. And the people who are attracted to this come here to live. One thing we're proud of is we've been in operation 6 years now. We've only lost a single employee who's left the company, and that employee left because of a major illness. So people come up here to live. They're not looking for a stepping stone to the next thing. So with the type of employees we attract, we can't afford to have that brain drain of them going across the road to another company every 2 years. So quality of life is huge. The other is, of course, access to the manufacturing infrastructure in Michigan. Michigan can teach the world how to build high precision, high reliability, high capacity products. And satellites are just another product that we can map Michigan's expertise and supply chain onto. So that's huge. And then, as you mentioned, Michigan Tech, any tech startup needs to have access to a major research university and all the coattail effects that come with that. And so Michigan Tech is that catalyst for us. So all of those things together have made this a great place to do business.
Excellent. So I want to dig into a few different things. The first one has to be the UP. Now, Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a lot of folks watching or listening to this aren't going to be familiar with. It's a stretch of land north of the main part of Michigan most people are aware of, and north of Wisconsin, and between there and Lake Superior. How much snow did you guys get this year?
Everybody asks. So yeah, We got 325 inches of snow this year, and hopefully we're done. I'm not saying we're done, but hopefully we're done. So
right.
That was a higher than average snow year for us, but not a record.
Well, so as we talked about up front, I am from the UP, from a little town called Ironwood, which is even farther west, right on the border of Wisconsin, headed toward Minnesota. And we only got 200 inches of snow a year there.
Oh, you guys are down in the banana belt.
Yeah. I remember, so my birthday is the end of April. I just had my birthday, and I remember many birthdays where there was snow on the ground, snow falling, cold. So yeah, this time of year is not necessarily the best, but you say quality of life. So talk about why, even though you have some rough stretches here as spring drags on, what are the advantages? What are the big pluses there?
Just so the community is amazing. You have a first or second degree connection with everybody in your community, and it changes how people interact. What I find is in large, urban centers or suburban centers, people feel anonymous, which makes them feel maybe unconnected to their community, which makes them withdraw even more, and also affects how they interact with other people in their community. They're less friendly, less open, more suspicious. If somebody cuts you off in traffic, you're much more likely to honk the horn at them than wave them through. Now, in our community, you're very likely to encounter that person in the checkout line at the grocery store later that day. So your first instinct isn't to honk the horn; it's to use your human nature and be friendly, and that changes the way you live completely. Yeah. So the community is huge. What we also find is just the outdoor recreation opportunities. Living right on the shore of Lake Superior, all of our workforce is deeply engaged in outdoor activities. We've got pictures. Last week, this is a true story. 2 of our employees took a canoe to work. We're right on the waterfront. They paddled in with their canoe, carried it up, and put it in the parking lot and took a picture of it. That's how they came to work that day. And where can you build plasma thrusters and paddle a canoe to work? So snow is a resource for us. Everybody skis. Out our window is Mount Ripley Ski Hill. We have employees who ski during lunch. They can drive over and get 4 runs in during lunch hour and come back. Most of our employees have boats. So that's what I mean by quality of life. It's community and recreation.
Yeah. And it's interesting, you look at what happened through the pandemic, where the city's emptied out, and a lot of folks who went to places like you are, they're not going back.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's not for everybody. There are differences. If you don't enjoy snow and winter sports, that's a long season to endure.
Yeah, it is.
But if you don't see it as something to endure and you turn it into all the opportunities, it's amazing how much fun you can have.
Yeah, and it's not like they don't have summer there, folks. Summer is wonderful. Might be a little shorter than a lot of people are used to, but I know mountain biking has taken off hugely up there too.
Yeah, it really is. The local trails here are, they stack up with some of the best trails in the country. We're starting to see a lot of tourists coming up here and taking advantage of that and feeding into the local economy. And it's vibrant in all seasons. Winter is as big a tourist season as summer, for sure. So we get a lot of people coming up and appreciating it.
Well, I won't make it quite there, but I'm headed to the UP here in June, and I'm definitely bringing at least my mountain bike, if not both my bikes.
Oh, great. Yeah. So all of our secrets up there. Don't tell.
Well, I miss it. I married a woman from the South. I don't know that I'll ever live in the UP again because of that, but certainly like being where I am down here in the Grand Rapids area. Not too far a drive, and I still have family up there. So yeah, I love getting back up there.
Oh, that's great.
So, the other thing you mentioned is the Michigan manufacturing infrastructure and know-how. So talk a little bit more on the details there.
Yeah. So what we make is called a Xenon plasma thruster, which has the air of science fiction to it and sounds exotic, but it's really a mechanical and electrical component made of some specialty materials with high precision machining needs and tolerancing and quality and reliability. When you explain it that way, it's no different than what's under the hood of an F-150. We need machining suppliers and vendors who can make our parts for us and can hold the quality. We need the workforce that can come and process the supply chain and receive it. And all of that is right here in Michigan. So I don't have the exact number, but a very large percentage of our suppliers are in Michigan. So we can go and get on their shop floor and meet with them and explain to them our needs. We can visually monitor the quality, and it's all right here. And once the vendor base realizes building a component for a plasma rocket is no different than a car, there's a huge palette of folks we can choose from.
Yeah. For people who aren't aware, everyone, of course, they think Michigan and they think the big automakers, and that's certainly a wealth of know-how there and a long history of manufacturing success. But, people don't think about the suppliers to those manufacturers. And that's so much more of what Michigan has to offer is those tier 2 and tier 3 type folks who are doing the sub-assemblies for our legacy industries and now our future industries, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's a part of the reason there's a good fit for us in Michigan is because the space industry has changed. Now, 20 years ago, building a satellite was a team of 15 or 20 rocket scientists in white coats building a Fabergé egg, right? Every satellite was a snowflake. They were all different. Yep. And that's not manufacturing. That is more science, technology, R&D. But now that we've hit that inflection where we need to build 500 satellites a year, now this is manufacturing. And all of the lessons and expertise that exist in Michigan can map directly to that problem. And we, in fact, find that we are learning many good lessons about manufacturing from the auto industry that we're mapping back onto the space industry. As space industrialists, we're coming to this market inflection with ignorance in how to do large-scale manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So we need the mentorship from the folks who have been here doing it, and we find that in spades.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, is you guys bring in that high tech that the rest of us don't necessarily know, but that manufacturing capability is something that a lot of people also don't know, right?
Yeah, and when we come to it, we've got a lot of folks who have been in the space industry for years. And if we come to our suppliers now and say, here's how we do manufacturing in the space industry, you get eyebrows going up and eye rolls like, really? Let me try to teach you some better ways to do it. And we're all ears. And we find that we need to break the way space manufacturing has been done and make it more like an automotive manufacturing model.
Yeah, it's interesting. So swinging back to your particular business now, you've commercialized your systems. You're out there with a product on the market now, right?
Yeah, that's right. So kind of the evolution of how we got here. In the beginning, it was, two guys in a napkin sketch, and we raised some capital and used that capital to prove that, we could build a prototype for a unit that hit the performance promises we made. So once our prototype was proven, now we had belief that we can make this product. So then we took another round of capital and used that to commercialize the prototype, meaning go from prototype to a device that is form, fit, and function, saleable on the market and usable. We did that, and then we started to get early customers signing up to say, yeah, we'll buy that. So then we use that proof that not only can we build a commercializable product, but there are customers willing to exchange American dollars for our product. And now it's time to scale up our manufacturing. So we did another equity raise a little under a year ago, and we're now scaling up our manufacturing plant to hit the capacity we need.
Have you had anything launched yet?
We haven't. We're delivering our first flight units to customers this year. Okay. So we don't know if they'll get into orbit end of this calendar year or early next calendar year, but that'll be another great checkbox for us, is to have it up, no doubt, going around the Earth every 90 minutes.
Some huge excitement there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Now, as you look out, you've got the customers who've already signed up. Obviously, you're looking for more. So where do you see those opportunities coming down the road?
Interestingly, we have a pretty even mix between government and commercial. I started in this podcast by bragging about how fast commercial industry moves when they sense value. And government is always this slow flywheel that takes forever to spin up. We've been incredibly surprised at how fast government has moved and how agile they have been. They've seen the need to move to the small satellite market and business model. And boy, they've come along 5 years faster than we've expected. So roughly half of our sales are to government agencies who have moved quickly. So we're splitting it half and half.
Okay. Um, Sticking with what you do for the foreseeable future, or do you have plans to expand your product line?
We do. We're working on other products as well. We did a sort of a market study going in and try to decide which product would have the largest market share, and we hit that just right. Now there's another product which is basically a slightly larger engine, to beat that metaphor up, that also has sort of the next largest market share. So we're working on that as well, and then we're also working with our customers to jointly realize new opportunities that are available now that we have this product and they have these capabilities. What other architectures can we build and deploy? So we've got some of those on the back burner as well.
Okay. So this is obviously a really new and different business environment, but what you typically see is consolidation as well. So as you look out in the farther future, do you foresee potential acquisitions by your company, potential, partnerships, that kind of thing?
I think all of the above. You're correct. There is a decent motivation for companies to go vertical. So customers of ours that are building satellites, and they're going out and procuring the engines from us and the solar panels from somebody else and the batteries from somebody else, they're seeing a big benefit in going vertical and taking some of those key components and putting them in their stack to reduce their supplier base. So we're seeing that happen as well. And we're also seeing a lot of new players coming in. So yeah, what we're looking at, maybe bolting other capabilities on so we can go vertical within our product. And of course, we have our eyes open for if there's a good fit for us to be vertical in somebody else's enterprise. So right now, we just have our heads down, doing a great job and delivering engines, but consolidation is probably out there somewhere.
Okay. Now I'm going to switch gears entirely on you, because I remember reading an article, and I can't remember if we touched on this when we've chatted or traded emails before, but read the article about, is it the inevitable?
Oh, okay. Yes.
The wooden boat?
Yeah, I have the wooden boat disease. Disease for which there is no cure.
Well, tell us about your boat.
You got it. So the backstory on that is, I like to build things. I like to work with wood, so I'm inclined that way. Growing up, my grandfather had a wooden boat. It was a 1950 Matthews 40-foot flybridge sedan, and of course, I had great memories on that. And I've had wooden boats of my own since then, and my father's had wooden boats. And a handful of years ago, I made the mistake of thinking, geez, I wonder if there's any of those boats out there that still exist. I found my grandfather's actual boat, but it's rotting in a field. And never go back in the water.
Yeah,
so there was some disappointment there.
Yep.
But then I found a twin to it up in Vancouver, British Columbia, floating. And that's all, just floating. It wasn't doing much more. So I bought it, put it on a truck, brought it back here, and have now completely refit it. And it's my favorite thing to do in the summer.
So it's amazing. I have absolutely no background in that. But I was on a scouting sailing adventure up kind of going out of Mackinac City and going either way into Lake Michigan and Lake Huron. And one day we wound up stopping at a little town called Hessel, which is like another half hour, 45 minutes beyond the bridge from where you are, beyond the Mackinac Bridge. And turned out they have a wooden boat festival there. So I was talking to the people who own the boat repair outfit that is the host site for that, learned a little from them, found out they have a boat repair facility out on the edge of town. They offered us a tour out there. So we went and visited, and they had several wooden boats. They were doing, the same thing you're doing with the inevitable, fixing them up. And I just got really curious. I wound up writing a couple different articles on the wooden boat business. They're still making new wooden boats, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's really as a builder, it's just a fascinating structure to work with. I've done my share of houses and remodels, and everything's square and rectangular and miter saws and measurements. And then you get in the wooden boat area, and it's all curves and patterning and artistic lines. So it's a whole different way of thinking and working. And I can wax overly romantic about these, and I'll stop myself. But the boat, what I tell people is, right, the new parts for that boat grow on trees. If you take care of the boat properly, it has an infinite lifetime because you can keep adding new wooden components. And I can fix it by being a carpenter instead of a chemist, which was required on a fiberglass boat. So I enjoy working on the boat as much as I do sailing it and running it. So both of those are a lot of fun. But the ultimate reward is in the summer, getting away. Lake Superior, we live on Lake Superior, and Isle Royale is in the middle of Lake Superior. Mm-hmm. And there's very few places you can actually get away from civilization. That's one of them. And this magic thing happens when I'm halfway across the lake to Isle Royale. This thing transitions from a phone to a camera.
Right.
The magic moment of knowing I can't reach anybody and nobody can reach me.
Yep.
And that's so much more relaxing than just ignoring your phone.
Yep.
Knowing that I'm not ignoring it, it just doesn't ring. And that's what motivates me. All those months laying under the boat in winter motivate me to get out in the middle of the lake this summer.
Yep. Interesting. Now, you're literally a PhD rocket scientist, right? And yet there's this obviously artistic side to you getting into the wooden boat thing. Do you see that kind of thing typical with people that those of us outside looking in would think, major league total geek factor, science. But they kind of march together, don't they?
Yeah, and I see that all the way across our staff at Orbeon. The traits that make somebody an engineer are not generally technical. Sure, they like science, they like math, but they like to build something. They like to create something, and engineering is a way to build and create. So looking across our staff, right, everybody has some kind of a shop at home, whether it's an electronics shop or a metalworking shop or a woodworking shop. Everybody's got projects from renovating old cars to renovating houses. So I think it's pretty common and typical to see engineers have something on the side that involves building and creating. And it's a great outlet. And building a company is kind of the same thing. I got into this because I like to build rockets, and now we're building a company, but it's still that reward of going from nothing to stepping back and going, holy cow, look what we created there. So yeah. I think it's pretty typical. Yeah,
that's very cool. When you think about the future of the company, sticking around in Houghton?
Absolutely. 100%. This will be a Michigan-based company and a Houghton-based company. That's one of the legacies we want to leave behind, is to have an aerospace beachhead in Houghton as a pole star to show other companies that this is a viable place to do high-tech business, and as a way to have a partnership with the university and the other tech community. So yeah, this is a Michigan company.
So tell us a little about the university. Obviously, there's going to be plenty of people watching who aren't familiar with Michigan Tech.
Oh, sure. So yeah, Michigan Tech is located in Houghton, Michigan, up right in the same town with Orbeon. It is a world-class engineering, it's a research university. We have the largest collaboration with the engineering department and programs there. It has a student population, I believe, about 7,500 undergraduate students. It was originally the Michigan College of Mines because this is a mining area, but then it became a full technological university with all the science and arts along with it. And it's a bit of an unknown gem up here, located right on the shore of Portage Lake. It's got a great lifestyle, and our graduates from Michigan Tech are highly sought after. I think I saw the placement rate is somewhere always around 96 or 97%. Right. And the companies who discover Michigan Tech graduates come back year after year after year and keep hiring tech grads. So we really like this synergy with the university.
Well, I have to admit, I have a little personal connection. My nephew just finished his first year up there. So he's back home in Green Bay, but yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, that's great.
And I saw an article not too long ago about some outreach that you guys were doing some programs right there on the campus as well, right?
So maybe what you're referring to is in my role as a faculty member for the university, I advise a student group called the Aerospace Enterprise.
Yep.
It is a curriculum group. It's about 100 students, all undergraduates from all disciplines across campus. And we design, build, and launch small satellites.
Oh, cool.
We have one in orbit right now that was funded by the U.S. Air Force. We've got two in development right now, one funded by NASA and the other one funded again by the U.S. Air Force that will be launched in the coming years. So that's a great focus for more science and technology, that we've got 100 students every year building with their fingerprints on these satellites that they put up in orbit and operate. And there's
That's
not
amazing.
a lot of universities you can go and build your own satellite and get it.
Yeah, I didn't get to do that when I was in engineering school. So
Neither did
folks
I.
who were looking for a college, Michigan Tech.
Right.
So those satellites, are they research satellites? What do they do?
There's different missions on all of them. The first one that's up there now, its mission is actually ended, so it's orbiting and it's not functioning. It was called Oculus, for Latin for the eye. It acted as a calibration target for ground-based telescopes used by the Air Force. So you can imagine our government would like to see other satellites and know what they're doing. This was sort of a practice target where they could try to establish if they knew what the satellite was doing, and then we would provide the truth afterwards with here's what the satellite actually was doing, and let them sharpen their pencils and improve their techniques for surveilling satellites. The two we have now, the NASA satellite is called Stratus. It's only about the size of a shoebox, and it's a cloud imager. It monitors weather and cloud patterns and cloud top winds. The third one is another Air Force satellite called Orus, which is Latin for the ear. And what it does is it listens, it receives radio broadcasts from other satellites and learns things about those satellites from the broadcasts they're transmitting. So it's a receiver. And both of those satellites will be getting ready for launch in the coming, I think, 2 years.
Amazing. Wow, that's really cool. Is there anything we haven't touched on that our listeners ought to know?
No, I think we went from plasma thrusters to old wooden boats. I think that's the entire waterfront. There's nothing else in the universe that would be excluded from that range.
You got any big plans for the summer other than working on plasma rocket thrusters?
Yeah, rockets and old wooden boats take up most of my time. My son is 11 and he loves to do both. So he's there in the shop with me working on the boat. He's at Orbeon, spending some days with me. And he'll be on the boat with me this summer. So between rockets and old boats, that's a pretty full slate.
Very cool. Have you ever heard of Van Dam wooden boats?
I have, yes. Beautiful boats. Yeah.
I got to go visit those guys.
Oh, I've seen them on YouTube and the videos, and that's a whole new class of wooden boats. So
it's unreal. And you mentioned the shop, and that immediately brought me back to walking through their shop and they just have artisans there who they literally make everything except the engines, and the engines they, redesign to their own purposes. So yeah, phenomenal stuff.
And again, right here in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
That's a Michigan manufacturing company that just kind of gives more credence to. We know how to build stuff here.
Well, and that it's not all auto anymore. I think a lot of people still think that Michigan's all, the old school 70s automotive technology. Even the automakers aren't there anymore. They're well beyond that. But yeah, there's so much more. And even those other suppliers we talked about, you probably have suppliers who were part of automotive supply, and they've all branched out and they're all doing cool new stuff.
Absolutely. And there's a huge, I don't have the statistics handy, but some of the aerospace manufacturing institutes have done surveys on the climate in Michigan and found it to be like one of the top 3 states for aerospace manufacturing in the country. And that's ongoing now. That's really happening. We don't have sort of the big branding. We don't have a big Boeing building or a Lockheed building or something, but all the parts being made in Michigan are feeding these giant aerospace programs. And it's just, we're building it here and shipping it out.
There you go. Another plug for my home state.
That's right.
And yours. Well, good deal. Brad, thanks so much for being on Manufacturing Talks.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me.
If folks want to learn more about Orbion, where do they go?
Yeah, they can catch us on the web at orbionspace.com. We've got a link there to some of our press articles that we've appeared in, and there's also other web presence out there. Or if they happen to be in Houghton, come and find us. We'll show you how we build plasma thrusters.
Cool. I need to get up there myself. In fact, you may recall, we actually were arranged to have me out there when I was up there 2 years ago. And unfortunately, my wife got injured. We had to cancel.
Oh, yeah. Well, come back up this summer. We'll be there. I'll get you out on Inevitable.
Okay. I may well take you up on that. Brad, great talking to you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
So long.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vanoski. Watch for new episodes dropping on the first and third Tuesdays of every month.